Welcome to High Global New Military Updates. This is where military developments, global strategy, and modern weapons power are updated with a deep and emotional personal perspective. Each video is a beat of the times where we analyze and reflect on power, war, and peace in a turbulent world. Ladies and gentlemen, don't take your eyes off the screen and don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well as leave a comment below. Not afraid of any force, Japan, once a powerful nation in the world, can it return to its golden age? Through visits and lessons from the Italian and British Navy, Japan is gradually transforming the Izumo into a true aircraft carrier. The F-35B, symbol of the new generation of fighter jets, will become the trump card, opening the door for Japan to reaffirm its position as a maritime power. But is that enough when the US, China, and Russia have all entered the race in aircraft carrier technology and hypersonic missiles? According to U.S. West Defense News, officials from the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force visited the Italian Navy's aircraft carrier in August. During this visit, they consulted on how to deploy and operate F-35B fighters on aircraft carriers. Japan had previously ordered 42 F-35Bs, with the first expected to be delivered in 2025. Two Izumo-class destroyers, already under conversion, are likely to officially become full-fledged aircraft carriers. So what can Japan learn from the Italian Navy, and how will the Izumo complete its transformation? That is exactly what we will discuss today. As early as November 2018, then-Japanese Defense Minister Izunori Onodera publicly announced to the media that Japan was considering converting the Izumo-class helicopter destroyer into an aircraft carrier, while also purchasing 42 F-35Bs to equip the fleet. Japan carried out this process with remarkable efficiency. Within just 2 years, the Izumo-class ships, including the Izumo and Kaga, had begun the process of conversion into aircraft carriers through two main phases, from applying heat-resistant coatings on deck markings, changing the bow shape to a rectangle, to modifying the internal compartments. By April 2023, Japan's two Izumo-class ships had basically completed the conversion process, although some finishing work will continue until 2027. However, these details no longer prevent the takeoff and landing of F-35B aircraft. On the U.S. side, they also did not neglect the opportunity to support Japan, America's most important ally in the Western Pacific. Helping the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force enhance its combat capabilities aligns with the U.S.'s traditional policy of rebalancing the region. Even while the Izumo was still under conversion, in October 2021, U.S. forces stationed in Japan deployed two F-35B fighters from Marine Corps Squadron 242, based at Iwakuni, to perform 4 successful takeoffs and landings on the Izumo's deck. This helped Japan complete the tests of the F-35B's carrier operations. Through the actual operation of U.S. F-35Bs, whether short takeoff or vertical landing, the Izumo's deck withstood high temperatures and the intense exhaust flames of the jet engines. Although Japan acted quickly, the pace of achieving combat readiness with the F-35B was still slower than that of the Italian Navy. When Japan officially launched its F-35B procurement plan in 2018, the Italian Navy had already begun modernizing its Cavour carrier, and related work was completed by May 2020. In fact, recently the Italian Navy officially declared that its F-35B fleet had reached initial operational capability. Italy became one of the few countries in the world to operate fifth-generation fighters from an aircraft carrier, and the only EU nation to deploy the F-35B in its fleet. As of now, the Italian military has ordered 30 F-35Bs and 60 F-35As. The platform the Italian Navy relies on to develop its F-35B air wing is the Cavour carrier, with a full displacement of over 30,000 tons. This ship was built by the Fincantieri Company and officially entered service with the Italian Navy in 2008. The name Cavour may be unfamiliar to many, but it is the flagship, the symbol of Italian naval power. The ship is named after Count Cavour, the Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Italy in history, who ordered the creation of the Royal Italian Navy in 1861. In some respects, Cavour is considered the father of the Italian Navy, and to this day it remains a symbol of Italy's maritime strength. Although both the Cavour and the Izumo have a full displacement of about 30,000 tons, the difference lies in the fact that Cavour was designed from the start to operate fixed-wing aircraft. Therefore, the amount of modification work required to adapt the Cavour for F-35B operations was far less than what was needed for the Izumo. From an overall perspective, Italy's earlier start with the F-35B program and its easier conversion process allowed the Italian Navy to get ahead of Japan's maritime self-defense force. For this reason, Japan views the Italian Navy as a strategic partner to learn from. Through Italy's experience in deploying the F-35B aboard carriers, it demonstrated a faster path to achieving operational capability. Meanwhile, Japan still has to complete additional work and refinements, with full capability not expected until 2027. In fact, in September 2023, Japan also examined the F-35B operations aboard the UK's HMS Queen Elizabeth. At that time, Queen Elizabeth docked at the Yokosuka base in Kanagawa Prefecture, alongside U.S. Navy warships stationed in Japan. Japan's Defense Minister Yoshikazu Hamada took the opportunity to personally survey the F-35B operations on the British carrier. Interestingly, the visit to Italy's Cavour carrier occurred under similar circumstances, as the Italian ship also visited Yokosuka. This further reinforced Japan's proactive effort to directly learn operational lessons from allied nations. However, according to experts, the UK carrier provides less practical reference value for Japan compared to Italy's. This is because the structure and dimensions of the Cavour have far more in common with the Izumo class than with the Queen Elizabeth. Both Cavour and Izumo are over 240 meters in length, about 38 meters wide, with a simple single-island deck design and aircraft elevators located at the rear. The main distinction is that Cavour uses a short ski jump style ramp, while the Izumo employs a completely flat deck. In the future, as both operate the F-35B, a fighter capable of short takeoff and vertical landing, this difference will matter less. Thus, in terms of design and operations, Japan's maritime self-defense force can clearly reference Italy's model to gain experience. Although Japan has already studied advanced practices from the US and examined the UK's carriers, the Italian Cavour remains the closest and most practical comparison. This offers Japan especially high reference value in aircraft coordination, deck operation efficiency, and standardizing technical procedures. From a strategic perspective, Japan's choice to learn from Italy reflects a cautious yet deliberate path, rather than directly copying the American or British models, which differ significantly in scale. Japan selects a nation with a foundation more aligned to its own capabilities and needs. Simply by observing their appearance, one can already see the resemblance between Cavour and Izumo. Both are over 240 meters long, about 38 meters wide, using a simple single-island design with aircraft elevators placed at the rear. The key difference is that Cavour employs a short ski jump ramp, while Izumo relies on a flat deck. This difference is not a major obstacle, since the F-35B with its short takeoff and vertical landing capability can operate on both types of decks. Thus, in terms of functionality, deck area, and operational procedures, Izumo can directly learn from Cavour's experience. In reality, Japan has consulted both the US and UK, but their carriers are far larger, Nimitz and Ford at 100,000 tons, Queen Elizabeth at 70,000 tons, far beyond Izumo's scale. That is why Italy becomes the most suitable model for Japan to study. This is also why Japan views Italy as a strategic partner in order to draw practical lessons in flight operations and deck management. From a technical standpoint, Cavour's operation most closely resembles Izumo's future state. This gives Japan significant learning value, especially during the critical stage of transforming Izumo into a true aircraft carrier. According to military experts, Japan's direct observation of Cavour reflects its cautious approach. They aim not only to learn the strengths, but also to anticipate weaknesses, avoiding risks once Izumo officially enters service. The coordination process on an aircraft carrier deck is inherently complex. Aircraft are lifted from the hangar to the flight deck by elevators. Technicians then tow the jets into precise positions. Before takeoff, crews inspect engines, landing gear, electronic systems, refuel the aircraft, and load weapons. All must follow strict procedures to prevent accidents. On Izumo, thanks to the F-35B's short takeoff and vertical landing (STOVL) capability, Japan does not need catapults like the U.S. carriers. This simplifies operations, lowers costs, and reduces technical risks. Still, it demands extremely precise coordination from the crew. During takeoff, the commander gives the final signal. Pilots accelerate and carefully monitor their jets. During landing, the landing signal officer, LSO, employs optical landing aids and radio communication to guide aircraft safely. Parameters like altitude, speed, and angle are monitored closely. Though simpler than U.S. procedures, Izumo must still maintain firefighting, medical, and emergency response teams. A single fire could devastate the ship, as seen in past U.S. carrier incidents. This is why Japan values Italy's operational experience so highly. During the landing phase, Izumo benefits from the F-35B's vertical landing capability, eliminating the need for arresting cables and catapults like on U.S. carriers. This reduces technical complexity, but thorough preparation is still required. On deck, firefighting teams remain on constant alert for potential fires, while medical crews stand by for emergencies. A single fire could cripple the ship, as seen with the USS Bonhomme Richard in 2020, which suffered billions in damages and had to be decommissioned. This lesson makes Japan pay special attention to fire safety systems. Equally important is the training of technical crews. They must work in perfect coordination, inspecting aircraft, refueling, loading weapons, and guiding pilots. Even minor mistakes can result in catastrophic outcomes. Izumo must also ensure rapid maintenance capability to sustain a high sortie rate. In modern warfare, the turnaround speed, from landing, refueling, rearming, to taking off again, is a decisive factor in gaining superiority. All of these lessons Japan is drawing from Italy and the US, not just to operate Izumo, but to maximize its real combat effectiveness. Another important point is that Japan is not only focusing on Izumo as a strategic platform, but also raising a bigger question. Can light carriers fully replace the role of traditional supercarriers? The concept of the Lightning carrier was born in the U.S., leveraging the F-35B and medium-sized amphibious assault ships to cut costs while maintaining combat capability. Izumo stands as proof of this trend. Much smaller than the Ford class, yet more flexible, more economical, and powerful enough for the Asia-Pacific region. However, experts warn, small carriers cannot sustain prolonged combat in high-intensity wars. With fewer aircraft and limited resupply capacity, Izumo cannot compete with supercarriers capable of deploying 90 jets at once. Yet Japan has its own advantage: geography. Izumo does not need to travel far like U.S. carriers, but instead operates mainly around East Asia, where distances are short and logistical bases are dense. This makes Izumo an extremely effective defense-offense tool for Japan's anti-access strategy. In the global picture, the rise of Izumo also carries an important political message. Japan has stepped out of the shadow of being defense-only after World War II. Aircraft carriers, once considered symbols of offensive power, have now become legitimate platforms in Japan's new defense policy. Equipping the Izumo with the F-35B shows that Japan is not only defending its territory, but also aiming for regional influence. This change reflects not only military needs, but also a response to a shifting security environment. China's rise, its anti-access strategy, and its growing carrier fleet forced Japan to adapt. Meanwhile, Russia's development of hypersonic missile systems poses another potential threat. Izumo is not a supercarrier, but its flexibility and lower operating costs make it a smart weapon in Japan's hands. Instead of competing directly with the US, Japan exploits its regional advantage, quick, lean, and always ready to respond in its own backyard. Looking back at history, Japan was once a notorious naval power, commanding the feared combined fleet. But after its defeat in World War II, the pacifist constitution restricted the country to maintaining only self-defense forces. The emergence of the Izumo as a true aircraft carrier marks a turning point. Japan is reviving the naval instincts that once made the world cautious. With its ability to deploy the F-35B, the Izumo carries the message that Japan is ready to take on greater responsibilities in the region. This is not just a story of weapons, but also of political will. Tokyo aims to prove to its ally, the US, that it can share the security burden while simultaneously sending deterrent signals to China and North Korea. More importantly, the Izumo stands as a symbol of balance between past and future. From a nation once constrained by strict limitations, Japan is now entering a new era, one where it not only defends itself, but also safeguards interests beyond its home shores. Amid growing tensions in the Asia-Pacific, Japan's role is becoming increasingly prominent. Not only is it a close ally of the United States, but it also sits in a strategic position guarding key maritime routes. Turning the Izumo into an operational aircraft carrier gives Tokyo another card to assert its status. The Izumo is not a massive Nimitz or Ford class, but its just enough capability makes it formidable. With lower operating costs and a leaner crew, it fits Japan's doctrine of flexible defense. While the US and China race to build supercarriers worth tens of billions of dollars, Japan has chosen a more pragmatic path, optimizing resources, focusing on the F-35B, and deepening allied cooperation. What's even more notable is the Izumo's potential as a testbed for naval UAVs. As modern warfare shifts toward human-machine integration, Japan has a real chance to lead. Thus, the Izumo is not only a story of the present, but also a ticket into the new era of warfare. One of the factors that makes the Izumo a true lightning carrier is its ability to integrate with allies. It's undeniable that Japan alone cannot directly compete with the US, China, or Russia in terms of carrier numbers. However, by embedding itself in a security network with the US, UK, and NATO countries, Tokyo has found a sustainable path. During joint exercises, US and UK F-35Bs have landed on the Izumo's deck, proving interoperability in real combat conditions. This not only strengthens strategic trust, but also sends a message. Any challenge in the Western Pacific will face collective strength. The Izumo is not just Japan's warship, it is a piece of the global Allied shield. Combined with UAVs, stealth technology, and aerial refueling, Izumo can become a key link in strategies to contain China and Russia. The key point: power lies not only in weapons, but also in the ability to connect and coordinate. Japan has chosen the right path, Instead of chasing numbers, it invests in quality and smart collaboration. When it comes to the Izumo, many experts argue that it is not just a ship, but Japan's declaration of power in the 21st century. From a nation once restrained by a pacifist constitution, Japan has quietly but steadily expanded its military role. The Izumo stands as the clearest evidence of this transformation, a change not only in strategy but also in defense mindset. The Izumo's presence on the global naval map marks a pivotal turning point. No longer limited to defending territory, Tokyo now possesses a tool to project strength beyond its borders. This forces potential adversaries to recalculate, while giving allies greater confidence in Japan's resolve. Yet the Izumo is more than steel and jets. Behind it lies an entire technological ecosystem, from advanced radars, layered defense systems, to the ability to operate with UAVs and next-generation fighters. Together, these create a mobile fortress that is both flexible and formidable. Most importantly, the Izumo has reshaped how the Japanese public views the role of their military. It is no longer seen as a passive defensive tool, but has become a symbol of national pride. Izumo, together with Italy's Cavour and the UK's Queen Elizabeth, represents a new generation of medium carriers, smaller than America's supercarriers, but far more flexible and cost-efficient. Their common feature is the use of the F-35B, a fifth-generation fighter capable of short takeoff and vertical landing. This eliminates the need for complex catapult systems while still delivering formidable strike power. While the U.S. maintains its Nimitz and Ford-class supercarriers, carrying up to 90 aircraft, Japan, Italy, and the U.K. have chosen a more pragmatic path. Smaller fleets that can deploy faster and operate at lower costs. This difference is not only technical but reflects strategic philosophy. The US seeks overwhelming global dominance, whereas Japan and Europe aim for agile regional strength. For Japan, the Izumo is a statement. Despite the constraints of its pacifist constitution, Tokyo will not stand aside in the race for defense technology. The Izumo is both a shield defending the homeland and a sword enabling Japan to play a deeper role in the Indo-Pacific security structure. In a sense, the Izumo's emergence is also a signal to China and Russia. Japan is ready. A key aspect of Japan's strategy is the ability to conduct allied joint operations. The Izumo never sails alone. It is always tied to U.S. forces in the region, from Yokosuka to Guam and Hawaii. The presence of F-35Bs on Izumo means Japan can share capabilities with allies, creating a unified network of power. In the event of a crisis in the South China Sea or the Taiwan Strait, the Izumo can quickly join a U.S. carrier strike group. This is the critical factor that reassures Washington of Tokyo's role. However, this also presents a challenge. Japan may be drawn deeper into regional conflicts, beyond its traditional defensive posture. The question is, will Japanese society, long accustomed to a pacifist constitution, accept an Izumo with offensive capability? What is certain is that merely maintaining the Izumo and its F-35B squadron costs billions of dollars annually. This is not just a military issue, but also a political and economic burden. There is no denying that the upgraded Izumo has elevated Japan into the ranks of the few nations with true aircraft carriers. From relying solely on missile defense and U.S. bases, Tokyo now possesses a symbol of sea power. This forces neighboring countries to change their perspective. China, with its supercarriers like the Type 003, cannot underestimate Izumo, since the F-35B is the only stealth fighter in Asia capable of operating from a medium-sized carrier. Russia, focused on its Arctic and Pacific fleets, must also recalculate upon seeing Japan project power offshore. At the same time, the Izumo creates pressure on South Korea, a country pursuing its own carrier ambitions. With Tokyo taking such a long stride, Seoul can hardly stay out of the race. The most important question, will the Izumo serve as an effective deterrent or drag Japan into new spirals of tension? Either way, the Izumo has made it clear. Japan is no longer an observer, but a direct player at the table of 21st century maritime power. Izumo is not just a ship. It is Japan's strategic statement to the world. In an era where weapon technologies shift rapidly, from stealth UAVs and hypersonic missiles to directed energy weapons, Tokyo's choice to bet on the F-35B is a declaration. Japan intends to be present in every major game. Looking back at history, Japan was once an empire with a navy feared worldwide. After its defeat in World War II, it was forced to abandon the dream of aircraft carriers. But now, as the F-35B takes off from Izumo's deck, history seems to have come full circle. Japan returns as a maritime power.
Yet the question remains, will Izumo and the F-35B be enough to face the future challenges as the US, China, and Russia all accelerate with next-generation carriers and weapons? The answer cannot be given today, but one thing is certain. Izumo has opened the door, and Japan has stepped through it. What is the lesson? Power is not only about weapons, but also about determination, the ability to learn, and the courage to change. Izumo stands as proof of that spirit. Will Japan continue to build surface warships larger than the Izumo class in the future? Power comes not only from modern weapons, but also from determination, the ability to learn and adapt quickly to the times. Japan, like any country, can only maintain its position if it dares to invest, dare to change, and dare to enter the big game. SAO, do you think whether the Japanese Izumo is strong enough to become the Lightning aircraft carrier and bring Japan back to its powerful position? Please leave your comments in the comments section. Once a powerful power in the world, can it return to its golden age? If you find this video valuable, useful, please subscribe to the channel, like and share the video to support High Daily Military News. I'm High. See you again in the next videos.